Ladies and gentlemen, my greetings. Thank you, Alex, for inviting me to this momentous occasion, the launching of your book, 500 Years Without Love, a worthy portrayal of the country's debilitating problems, portrayed in a manner similar to the style used by Jose Rizal in his books, published a little more than 130 years ago. Alex requested me to dwell on the same theme as that of his books. I am glad to do so. Our country is beset by so many big problems, such that if one were asked to fix them, he would have a real problem deciding where to start. Our troubles today are huge compared to those of Rizal's time. To avoid being blindsided, it is necessary to find and pick the overriding issue that troubles us today, such that by focusing on that overriding issue and fixing it, the other big problems may come into line for eventual mitigation, if not complete solution. I hold with a strong conviction that the overriding issue that we are facing today, and which have existed for many decades now, is that we have had a very ineffective government leadership, particularly the elected leadership at the executive and legislative branches of government. The all-embracing reason for this continuing lack of effectiveness is that the country is being run for many decades now by an oligarchy of about 100 families. Being so, there exists only a small pool of people of similar kind and having similar purpose from where we choose our leaders. And being an oligarchy, its members are mainly motivated by strong self-interest to perpetuate themselves and their relations in power. This condition necessarily breeds corruption and promotes the allocation of self-serving funds like the well-known pork barrel money. The members of this oligarchy possess the power and have the money to obtain the votes to get them elected. These advantages clearly make our elections uncompetitive for non-oligarchic potential leaders and thus perpetuate the hold on power by the oligarchy. As a result, there has been a lack of sufficient and serious focus and dedication to effectively deal with the existential problems that beset all of us. The gratification of the interests of the oligarchy has taken precedence over the promotion of the general welfare of the Filipino people. For as long as the present oligarchic system is not broken, we will continue to have a mediocre government leadership for a long time to come. Therefore, our pressing difficult problems will continue to remain unsolved and may likely become worse. With that assessment, I can end these comments at this moment and walk away and say there is nothing much we can do. But just the same, I feel the urge to continue as I still carry a glimmer of hope that the present oligarchy may be broken, although I am not sure how. On the assumption that the present oligarchic system can in fact be broken and enable us to elect strong leaders who are faithfully dedicated to the genuine betterment of the Filipino people, There are three things that must be given priority over all other issues. These are: first, poverty; second, education; and third, language. On poverty, I am convinced that a strong and direct government intervention is needed to substantially reduce poverty. Blindly relying on economic growth alone will not do it. The first intervention the government must do to reduce poverty is to provide all the poor with decent housing. This proposition will surely be challenged, though I feel that the poor deserve this assistance because it is merely a modest restitution to the descendants of our ancestors who were dispossessed of the use of the land during the Spanish conquest. From the latest official statistics that I gathered, the number of families below the poverty line is about 3 million. On the assumption that this number is equivalent to the number of poor families who need housing, at 500,000 pesos per dwelling unit, the total funds needed is about 1.5 trillion pesos. This amount is affordable if it's spread over 10 years, more so over 20 years. The amortization for 10 years can even be adequately matched by the amount of the pork barrel of our present legislators. The housing assistance for the poor should be made practically free to them, except for a token amount that they need to pay to make them feel that they also made an investment on their own dwelling. The other direct intervention is a guaranteed basic income for the poor. It will be non-conditional and will replace the present conditional cash transfer, which still does not cover all the poor. We can start modestly for this assistance and gradually increase it up to the present poverty income level of 132,000 pesos per family per year. If we start at 30% of this level, and based on 3 million poor families, this translates to 120 billion pesos per year. This amount may be funded by a higher income tax and estate tax and progressive property tax to be paid by our wealthy citizens. These higher taxes will be controversial. If we fail to adopt them, we have to rebalance our fiscal budget and give priority to fund this worthy assistance to the poor. I included education as a priority issue because acquiring good and relevant education will improve the economic success of our citizens. As a first step, we have to increase the proportion of our adult population who finish high school. Based on the last census in 2010, about 10 years ago, 41% of Filipinos 17 years old and older did not finish high school. It is a pitiful condition, even when one tries to lower that proportion to provide a reasonable measure of any improvement that was made up to 2020. To reduce the proportion and achieve a much higher ratio of high school graduates, we need to provide free transportation and meals to those students who need them to stay in school. But more than increasing the high school graduation rate, we need to substantially improve the present contents and delivery of all the required subjects by stressing much more thinking and writing through various means, including research. On tertiary education, we need to place more strict entry requirements so that only those with abilities for higher learning are admitted to tertiary education. The government should deliberately shift the studies of students by way of rules and incentives to courses involving the physical sciences, mathematics, high technology, and the arts. We need to produce much more citizens with such knowledge and skills to support a shift to a high value and high technology economy. Those who are unable to pass the entry hurdle to university will have to be given free access to acquiring finishing vocational skills to prepare them for gainful employment. The third priority issue is to adopt once and for all the use of a universal or primary language, a single language that is spoken fluently inside and outside the home. I consider that the lack of such a primary language is a big impediment to our economic and political development. At present, there's a wide lack of communication between the governing class and the governed. National and local laws and regulations are expressed in English. News, commentaries, and analysis of political and economic events are mostly expressed in English as well. On the other hand, most of our citizens do not understand and cannot express themselves well in English. For this reason, they become disinterested in understanding and getting involved in the conversation about national issues affecting their lives. This present condition is incomprehensible. Language is supposed to unite people. In our case, language divides us. We need urgently to select a primary language for universal use in all our communities, schools, media, and even at home. We only have three choices. We use either the present Filipino, Spanish, or English. Whatever the choice is, there will be a lot of work to do. For this reason, we need to make a choice soon. In closing, we need a competent and well-intentioned government to enable us to remedy in a sustainable manner what Alex aptly describes as cancer in our society. If we can install such a government, the priority of that government shall be to substantially reduce poverty, to overhaul education, and to adopt a primary language. The other many major issues will then be less difficult to fix. Thank you for your kind attention.